and how can I manage something which is new, which I'm just building a direction for it and structures for it.
Management of real estate is definitely not rocket science.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian Kayongo and I welcome you to our podcast, The Real Estate Kickstarter. I have a special guest here today who I'll be introducing it to you shortly. And I want to thank you for listening to us and sending in your views and comments. And we are able to research and bring for you important people in our lives who have been a great impact also us to learn from. And when they come to this podcast, also as we learn from them. So I'm going to introduce you our special guest today is called Mr. Frank from Newberry Living Apartments. Thank you, Mr. Frank. Welcome to the Real Estate Kickstarter.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Frank, most of our viewers here are immigrants and also people who are trying to get into real estate and those who are trying to scale real estate in different parts of the world, especially as in the US, like New England area, and also all over the US. Some try to buy real estate out of state because they think it may be affordable compared to the prices in this area. But I still teach them the general understanding of real estate, that real estate is the same all over the US. It is inflation, the way it attacks real estate in New England is the way it attacks real estate all over the US. So as you, our special guest here today, we want to get to know about what do you exactly do and which company do you work for? How have you helped society to develop into real estate? That's what we want to ask you about first.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I want to clarify my given name is Frank and my family name is Levy. So I'm Frank Levy.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Frank. Thank you so much. So can you tell us more about the Newberry Living, please?
Sure.
Yes.
Newberry Living was founded in 1983 by my father, the late Jim Levy.
Yeah. And
it started off focused on affordable housing.
Yes.
It since has expanded into market rate housing, meaning housing for people of any income.
Yes.
So we're now playing in both the affordable and the market rate arenas.
Yes.
Within the state of Iowa and a little bit in the state of South Dakota. Within each of affordable and market rate, we have some properties that are for senior citizens or frail elderly, and
nice.
some that are for people of any age. So we span the range, but what we don't do is we don't do for sale housing or for sale condos, just rental apartments.
Yes. And before we started the podcast, you were teaching me about how people can understand the word apartment. Can you briefly teach people about that? It's interesting. I didn't know about it, and today it was a miracle for me to learn about it, please.
Sure. Well, the word apartment in New York City just means a box in the sky, and it might be one that you own and it might be one that you rent.
Yeah.
In Iowa, we've referred to, when you say apartment in Iowa, you're referring to a rental. And if you're referring to something that you own, we call it a condo. So I was just trying to clarify to you earlier that we are not involved in condos.
Oh, okay.
We're just doing rentals.
Rentals. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So as someone who is starting to real estate, what are the unique things you think people should look at when they are entering into the industry of real estate investment?
I'd say the first thing to realize is that real estate is as multifaceted as, say, the field of medicine. If someone says, I'm a doctor,
yes,
there's a huge difference between a psychiatrist, a brain surgeon, someone who specializes in pediatric diabetes. There's so many different specialties.
Yes.
And just so in real estate. So I have a tiny little niche where I'm a bit of an expert, but my expertise is diluted quickly when I get out of my region and out of my category. So I guess the first thing for your pupils or
Yeah.
your fan base to appreciate is that there's probably certain areas of real estate that fit them better than others based on their areas of familiarity. So, as an example, if you were to ask me questions about retail,
Yeah.
I'm really not good at retail. I don't
Yeah.
have a good sense of what the customer is looking for. I don't have a good sense of the key success factors in retail. I wouldn't be able to reel off rules of thumb about what it costs to build. I would only be repeating aphorisms like, that you need good street visibility, things like that. I wouldn't know the details like parking ratios, all
How
of
many
that.
parking spots do you need to be having to build?
Right.
Okay.
But if
Oh,
we talk about apartments, I could talk to you things about,
yes, please.
square footages of the master bedroom. But I would be more accurate with respect to the demands of the customers in Iowa than Boston, let's say.
Yeah.
So it's very regional and it's very category specific that anyone's expertise is. But there are some people that are much more broad in their knowledge than I. We just don't do any hotels. We don't do so. I know nothing about hospitality. I know nothing about industrial. I know nothing about office. When I say nothing, I mean
You
beyond
do, you try to build a niche, and
Right.
in that niche, anything which changes out in the market, you are already, your mind is triggered to it. Oh, something is moving.
So as a generalization, I realize that there's some people that are savants that have a lot of areas of knowledge.
Yes.
But I think your podcast audience is mostly people who are getting into real estate, right?
Those who are getting into real estate and those who are trying to scale is mostly for me. I encourage my community of people who are viewing this is that getting to multiple family apartment buildings, because for me I believe most of the people who lose their homes firstly are the people who are having single family houses, because when like for example companies like Facebook, Twitter, all these big corporations start cutting off people from work, and you imagine yourself, you are one individual, you own your single family house and you're cutting from work and you're not able to sustain that mortgage payment, the bank is just going to send you that letter and foreclose on you as soon as they can. But if you have like a 2-family house or 3-family house or like a multiple unit apartment and you stay in one and you manage all the other units by yourself, it is easier for you to sustain that building more than it doesn't depend even on your income as you bring in. It depends on the tenants who you put in and how you vet them. So that's what commonly I like to teach my people, so that before they think about just them to sleep and have a nice home where it's a single family house, which I recommend to them to have after making a proper investment. Like for example, I recommend to them, okay, if you have an apartment building, 4-unit apartment building, it pays itself, it cash flows well. That cash flow is the same cash flow we encourage you to go buy your single family house. But not you go buy upfront a single family house and then you lose a job and you don't have sustainability to keep that property.
That's very good advice.
That is my best advice to them. That's why when me and we started discussing, I wanted you to teach them, okay, you buy this apartment building. How can you maintain it? How are you able to manage it in a proper way? For someone who is trying to do this and scale it.
Yeah. So real estate is hard to get into, and it's hard to get into without capital.
Yes.
And you have an audience that is largely immigrants starting out.
Yes.
So they're going to be very constrained. They may be constrained with regard to capital. But what they're not going to be constrained is their ingenuity and their willingness to make sacrifices, and they also may have useful skills. So I would say that if I were talking to someone, I had the benefit of being born into a real estate family.
Yeah.
So I had a father that started a business from nothing, and then I got to it wasn't a massive empire, but at least was something to work with. So really what I've done is I've taken something and tried to make it a little bit better. But you're talking to people that I think are largely going to be self-made, right?
Yeah, I like that, because that brings me to the question. Let me ask you this question. How is it important that you came and joined your father at one particular time of life, whereby he had built something, but you are encouraged to continue building it on? How can you emphasize this to my viewers, that it's important, like, because some of my viewers are like people like my parents. They've been here for like since 1990 something, but they always thought about like, let me send money back home to build something back home, but build something back home. Now they are here, they are thinking about, oh my God, I've been in this apartment for so long, but I wish I bought something of myself. Now I'm yet to retire, but the things which I have back home, they don't cash flow the same way something which will be cash flowing here. But for you are blessed in a way that your father started a business, and then you said, I want to build this as a generation business. And I think you're training your children to be able to do what? To continue with the business if they're interested into the business. So how was it important to your father to train you and get you ready so that you can continue that business?
He had, he didn't put any pressure on me at all.
Yes.
I got into the business after I sought to become an internet entrepreneur in the 1990s, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I returned to the family business.
Yeah.
But there was, we had my father's father was the immigrant in our family.
Oh.
So I was very
Originally?
from Russia.
Russia. Oh,
So
nice.
I was 50 or 75 years removed from the immigrant mentality of, this is our fate and I'm going to do this because it's our family's fate.
Yeah.
I had the mentality that I could do whatever I wanted,
Yeah.
and I want to choose my,
Path.
my what makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I think in only you only get one generation or two at most of sort of telling your children this is what you're going to do.
This is what you're going to do. Because nowadays, like I remember when I just came to this country, my dad told me like, okay, I want you to be a nurse. And I told, he found out after a while that I was doing accounting. And he asked me, how are you going to survive in accounting? For us, when we come here, the goal is to get jobs which, everyone, they are needed everywhere. Being in healthcare, season, everyone can hire you and you can be anywhere and you can make a living. But accounting, who is going to hire you? And I told him, no, I think I built the foundation and the principles which people can trust me to build the financial structure as with them and be hired in better positions. So it was important for me to know that, okay, it doesn't stop from there. But the one thing which I learned from them, like I'll share to your side, is that my dad used to do real estate in Uganda. And when I came here, I was like, what? And I enjoyed it because I used to manage it for them when he was here. And for me, I was in Uganda. But when I came here, I realized, okay, if I continue skilling from the other side, like in Ugandan side, how will it affect me being here? Because I take long to travel back and forth. Now I'm teaching my viewers, like it's also a good importance that if you learn certain principles from your past generation, like for example, you joining your father into real estate, but you said, how can you realize, okay, it was not my interest or point of view in the beginning, but I wanted to, but when I sat down and realized and I tried this and this, at the end of the day, I went back and I said, okay, let me give it a shot onto this side of position. Because what most of the people in life, what I think I can share with you is that they fear to start again. They fear to say, okay, let me rephrase my life again a little bit. And I say, okay, this is something which can work. So I like to the interest of you that you said, like, okay, I did this internet thing, but then I said, okay, real estate might be an opportunity there, and then you try to grow into that.
Well, let me try and wrap up the advice that I would have for a person who's just getting started in real estate.
Yeah.
I would say that you should try to reduce the things that you don't know about, and try and find something that's adjacent where there's some synergies to what you already know. So the things that you can't really control are things like interest rates.
Yes.
But you can control whether you buy real estate that's in your town versus in another state. You can control whether you buy real estate that's in a category where you actually have some personal skills that you could help manage it to save cost, or some personal networks versus not. So I'd say if you're trying to bootstrap your way into real estate, try to take advantage of as many of the things that you already have as possible. And I would say that would be your job training and your location. Because being proximate, being nearby the real estate is going to help you a lot from marketing perspective and maintenance perspective. So very simply, let's say that you are good at tile work.
Okay.
Let's say, a lot of people from some countries have a lot of experience in tile. So, then maybe tile work would be useful for either a building that needs to be renovated or a commercial space or something where you put down tile for a restaurant or something. But try and find a building that needs tile work. It's kind of obvious, but don't buy a condo in Las Vegas and think you're just making a real estate investment. You're not there. You're going to get taken advantage of by people over there. So if you're, let's say that virtually everyone in real estate, whether you're big and small, is going to have some need for current income.
Okay.
Because real estate usually has very long timelines.
Yeah.
Very long timelines before
It stabilizes and you start getting
if you're looking for real estate that cash flows like that, everyone's looking for that.
Yeah.
So that drives the cap rate to the point of it not working.
Yeah.
So you're going to likely have a deal where some things have to go right before it cash flows. So you're going to have some way to pay for groceries in the meantime. So you're going to have a job.
Yes.
You're going to have some other job. So you have to find real estate that works with your other job. So, if you have children and they're at school and you have to be taking them to, if you have a lot of responsibilities around the house, you may want a type of real estate that requires less attentiveness on your part. That might point you towards retail, where it's more of a triple net lease. If it's an apartment building and you are going to be the property manager, you're going to get called at times when things break. You're going to need to show the apartment at times. If you have, let's say, very small children and you have to shuttle them around town. So it really depends on the individual's personal situation, but I would just tell people to be very realistic about the demands of the real estate and how that works with your life. And to the extent that you can, try and simplify your life and keep it as close to your
organically.
Do something that you know or some place that you know to reduce the risk of being dependent on others and also being and making mistakes.
One of my other question I wanted to ask you: how can someone raise capital in real estate?
Well, it's you either need to come up with it yourself, or find the needle in the haystack deal where you can borrow almost all the money, or be able to pitch it to investors. And be able to make a case to investors or friends and family that it's a good investment.
Let me ask you a question. Someone like me who's thinking about, okay, let me go buy 4 units, and another person thinks about, let me go buy 20 units. How will you encourage people when they are let me say they're not entering real estate now, they are becoming pros and they want to scale? Do you encourage them to have a certain number of units when they're doing it, or it doesn't matter how many units they're scaling at? Like, do you think about okay, the same energy you use to buy 4 units is the same energy you're going to use to buy 20?
You need as many units as you can safely get without too much debt in as small an area as possible. Okay. So you want the biggest possible building or a cluster in the smallest possible geography. Okay. That's just rule of thumb.
In real estate, how would you advise someone who is trying to get into real estate? They should understand the management of debt in real estate.
Management of real estate is definitely not rocket science.
Yeah.
At the same time, it is moving very rapidly towards internet-based solutions. But the good news for any one of your listeners is that the software for managing real estate is getting to be super powerful at relatively low price points. So let's say that you're to buy an 8-plex or something. You could have a fully digital, fully online leasing and accounting solution at a few dollars per month per unit.
Yes.
And then the rest of it is governed by Massachusetts landlord-tenant law, and then just being good, offering good customer service. So I'd say the management part is not complicated, but it does take time. And if you don't have a lot of units, it might be hard to support your family on being a property manager because the fees are a tiny fraction of the total revenues. So it's going to be hard to make it work as just a property manager if you don't have don't have any scale.
Oh, nice. Briefly, can you help me to share with me which kind of loans can I use to be like when I'm investing in a big investment like apartment units? Which types of loans am I getting? How is the process? Just a bit of it.
Sure.
Yeah, I know it's so wide, but I want my viewers also to have an idea of like if they are trying to enter into affordable housing or any kind of like apartment living, as you guys doing it, they should be thinking about, the kind of loan I need to be getting, it's like this, it works like this, it can be financed like for this kind of duration and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to exclude a category of loans called hard money loans.
Yes. Okay.
A hard money loan is just borrowing money from
Private individuals. Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Pretty risky, but
Yes.
can be a good way to go in certain cases. But I'm going to not talk about that.
Yes.
Hard money loans are probably pretty common in house flipping. And I don't know that much about house flipping, but I'm pretty sure that hard money loans or equity
12% around.
yes, would be common in that field, but I'm not really that familiar with that. So I'm going to talk about the
Traditional
loan available for apartment buildings.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
First, let's divide all apartment buildings into stabilized and not stabilized. That's a key distinction. Stabilized means that you can rely upon its history to predict its future. Let's say, to put it into very practical terms, let's say that if you were to look at the last 12 months, the trailing 12 months income and expenses, that would be indicative of the coming months. Okay, stabilized. Okay, there's a universe of loan products available for stabilized properties that's bigger for not stabilized.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so stabilized properties, the loan products would include government agencies. So those are loans that are insured by HUD or loans that are offered by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Together, those are called agency loans, generally offering the best interest rates, the longest amortization periods, and the lack of personal guarantees.
Oh, that's so. Those are the non-recourse and recourse loans.
That's right. Those are generally going to be non-recourse loans and agency loans. Then there will be other loans that are not recourse, maybe offered by insurance companies. But that starts to be the full. And then there's commercial mortgage-backed securities. But I'd say for your listeners, we probably have covered the best loan products for stabilized properties.
Yes.
Then the other field would be not stabilized. What's not stabilized? Well, it doesn't have history that's indicative of the future. That can either be because it hasn't been built yet, so it has no history, or you're buying something and repositioning it or upgrading it, and so the rents that you hope to get in the future are better than the rents you got in the past, and or the costs that it suffered in the past will be lessened in the future. So at the very large scale, Wall Street companies will fund very large projects that are not stabilized with loans, certain types of loans that might be non-recourse. But for your listeners and for me, for non-stabilized properties, almost all the loans are going to come from local banks, period, and they're all going to be full recourse.
For recourse.
So if you don't have a balance sheet, it's going to be hard to get a very big loan, and so you're going to be limited as to what you can do.
What you can do. So they need to have mostly a stabilized building, and they have a scale of experience into what they are getting themselves into. Not just like saying, okay, I'm going to build new construction is good when I think you have exposed yourself to knowing how have I managed a stable investment and how can I manage something which is new, which I'm just building a direction for it and structures for it.
Right, but the trade-off is that everybody wants to find a stabilized property that's no risk, and so the cap rates for stabilized properties are going to be very low because there's so much demand and there's no barriers to entry. So you may have to start thinking about properties that need some uplift. I'm going to reposition it. So 3 people are looking at an apartment complex in Natick, and two people say, well, I'm going to value it based on its past. And one person says, well, what if we painted it on the outside and some flower beds here, and maybe I update the kitchens, and I think I can do that for $6,000 per apartment. I'm willing to essentially give the seller some benefit of that uplift and pay a little bit more and hope to make it up. And by that way, that third person wins the right to buy the building by offering more, and hopefully that person judged correctly the cost and the timing and the rent potential of those changes.
Okay. In this case, how have you been able to get your deals, like in your market? Because I think in any market, it's almost working the same. In your market, how do you get these deals which you're able to invest in?
Yeah. So I'd say that what I would have, what I would be loving to do is to have a product or a real estate concept that was a successful real estate concept where I could go out to various communities and find the parameters that were receptive for this product, and thus ka-chunk, 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 cookie cutter, roll it out. But for whatever my shortcomings are or our company's limitations, we've not come up with that yet. So for example, I'm in assisted living. I have 2 assisted living facilities. There are companies that in the space of my career have developed hundreds and hundreds of assisted living facilities.
Definitely, yeah.
Ka-chink, 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 ka-chink,
Yeah.
Overland
Every
Park,
neighborhood
Kansas.
you get into.
Right. So we've not accomplished that. So that's the grain of salt with which to take my comment. I'm better at understanding a small geographic area and seeing a site and kind of saying, I wonder what would be the highest and best use in that site. And so I'd say that my vision is pretty localized. So I'm pretty good at a few cities in Iowa sensing what would work in a particular neighborhood.
Can I tell you something?
I'd say that's more common.
Yeah.
My type of skill is more common. The ability to see something that's generalizable is rare, and people that can do that can have a lot of success.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, can I tell you something? One of the things which I really have realized is that you are like me in a such a way, like the way I invest. So many people, recently we had a conference, the Real Estate Kickstarter conference. Next year you're going to be with us. I hope so. So that on that conference, so many people were asking me, Massachusetts is so expensive. I can't find anything. I can't buy anything. And they're like, I need to go out of state to buy real estate. But commonly me, I advise them, when you invest in your local market, you know where CVS is, you know where Walgreens is, you know the basics of what you need to have as you're choosing. Let me say, I'm choosing, like the way I chose this location. I know there is Mercedes-Benz over there. I know how much research they have done. Like, I can even estimate how much research they have made to put a Mercedes dealership over there. So for me to have a property here, it answers so many questions for me. Nearby there's a super complex where there is like shows, there is Dunkin' Donuts. Someone is wanting to grab their coffee in the morning close to where they are living. They're not going to go far. So I'm like telling them, okay, you go out of state, you buy a property. And when you go out of state, you're trying to buy a property. You don't know how far Starbucks is from that place. You don't know how far Dunkin' Donuts is from that place.
And you don't have any vendors that rely upon you for their business.
Yes.
What is your vendors are going to give you attention based on how important you are to them. Yes. And if you're just one person from out of state, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to rely upon you. So you're not going to get their first, if they're a snow removal vendor, you're not going to be their first snowplow of the morning. Yes. If they're a janitorial service, they may not, be giving you the special thing. So it's better when you can not only know the area well, but become an important customer for all of your suppliers. Who are your suppliers? Well, I named some maintenance categories, snow and janitorial. But how about your biggest customer? Your bank. Yeah. Right. So I'm not going to be perfect, and I'm going to make some mistakes. The bigger customer I am for my bank, the more forgiving they're going to be when I make a mistake. Definitely. So you're one of your suppliers / partners as well. So I would say that I would not say never go out of market, but when you go out of market, you're going to be taking on risks, locational risks,
Location
that
risk.
you need to be pretty sure that you've thought
It
through.
gets hard how you assess the location and how your investment, how you secure it and protect it,
Right.
because it's an investment which you are putting your hard money you have
Right.
sweated for. So it's important, even if you don't get the biggest of the investment you need, but as long as you can start small in your market and you understand it, and even it gives a chance to scale slowly, organically.
Right, but in the immigrant community,
Yeah.
you may have national, ethnic, tribal
Definitely.
connections, cousins, people sharing your language group,
Yeah.
where you might have some trust, so that if you're living in Natick but you want to invest in
Chicago.
you may not be all alone to do that, because you may be able to call upon a cousin or a member from your home country's village,
Yes.
where you have some trust.
Yeah.
So I'd say at a minimum, you want some connection to that site. You don't want to own something where you're completely dependent on strangers or total strangers.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much, Mr. Frank. As we are closing, Mr. Frank, is there some of the few things you want to leave with my viewers to continue growing in real estate, and how they can continue scaling, and encourage them that real estate is one of the safest investment they can invest in?
Well, I wrote something down on my pad. I wrote 2 words:
Yes.
people and jobs.
Yes.
That's all real estate value is driven by jobs and people. So no matter what the category of real estate, it's not going to do well if it's in an area where people aren't coming.
Oh.
So if you were living in, say, what's a depressed area of New England? Am I right to say that Fall River
Yeah.
is? I know that the government had financial troubles. I don't know about the economy. So forgive me if I've picked the wrong. But forget about Fall River. Some town where it's got diminishing jobs.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's not that you can't make money in real estate. If you buy something at a very cheap price and turn it into something, you can make money. But you're going to be swimming upstream against the current if people aren't coming in. So even though everyone else knows this too, and everyone's looking for the places where at least it insulates you from some of your mistakes if you've got job creation and people coming in. Now, if you're going to invest in an area where you don't have job creation and people, there are ways to protect yourself, generally with the purchase price being low or some government incentive. But I'd say that it's probably better to just invest where the people and the jobs are, and not need government incentives or a really, really attractive purchase price. I think it's safer to just go where the people are going. So that's my one advice.
Yeah. So like it is where migration of people, where it's where you should invest, because your investment will be safe there, because there will be always the need for housing, because
that will insulate you from the worst mistakes. Or it will even if you overpay, as long as there's people coming in, you'll grow out of it.
So as we are closing, what will be your last marks for my viewers, please?
I would echo your earlier remarks, which is that it's a smart way to invest. It's hard, so come up with some small, reasonable, practical way to start investing in real estate. That to me makes a lot of sense. And an income property as opposed to your home can make a lot of sense as well.
Thank you so much. And guys, you have heard it from Mr. Frank from New Bear Living. Please, thank you so much for viewing. We really appreciate you. We love you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.